Hey everybody, Covert Prepper here. I wanted to talk today about some of the riots that have been going on these last couple days up in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and a few other places started over the weekend. Specifically, I want to talk about what you can do to keep yourself and your family safe should you find yourself in one of these situations, or if one of these protests turn riots should pop up in your area. There's a few general best practices for personal security that I'll talk about, plus one unique trick that you might not have heard of that could help keep you safe should you have to travel through one of these areas. So stick around. Okay, quick recap. Over the weekend, a 29-year-old black man by the name of Jacob Blake was shot by a police officer 7 times in Kenosha, Wisconsin. So that event sparked outrage by a lot of the citizens there, and many of whom took to the streets to protest. A lot of those protests started getting out of hand and turning into rioting, looting, violence, burning buildings, burning cars, all sorts of chaos. There have been a lot of groups up there at the riots participating in various ways. Obviously, we have the Black Lives Matter group, which has been protesting and doing a whole bunch of other things. There's evidence that Antifa groups have been there, which typically have been known to cause trouble and escalate matters. There have also been several armed groups that have gone up there in an attempt to protect some businesses. Among these groups was a young man by the name of Kyle Rittenhouse. From the footage available so far, it's pretty clear that this young man, Kyle, was pursued by some of the protesters, had some things thrown at him, was attacked, and unfortunately ended up shooting several of them, killing 2. Now, there's a lot that can be said about this whole situation. I've seen people online debating ad nauseum about who is right, who is wrong. Was the shooting justified? Was it not? What were the protesters doing there? What were the armed groups doing there? What was the motivations for all groups in attendance? I'm going to leave aside all of that and leave it to the political pundits and the legal scholars to debate all of that. I'd like to focus more on what you can do to keep yourself safe should you find yourself in one of these situations. So there's been a lot of good information posted about what you can do if you find yourself in one of these situations. I've seen personal security experts, firearms trainers, that sort of people talking about different things you can do and different strategies on how to keep yourself safe. However, I think that if you find yourself in one of these situations where you're surrounded by rioters or looters and you're in physical danger, your plan, your strategy has already broken down at some point and it's already failed to some degree. As the old saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Your firearm that you may be carrying is the cure. That's the pound of cure. Your 4,000-pound weapon of a vehicle that you're driving may be the cure, but an ounce of prevention is worth much more. The cell phone that you carry in your pocket is the source of all your information, and in the information age, there's good intel out there if you know where to look for it. That's the prevention. As firearms instructor and former Special Forces soldier Pat McNamara always says, you are the agent in charge of your own executive protection detail. And I would expand that. You are the agent in charge of your family's executive protection detail. There's not an executive protection detail on planet Earth who's protecting a group of VIPs who doesn't have a plan, know where they're going, and have good intel before they ever leave to go anywhere and do anything. If they're in an area that's a known hotspot, they will know where the activity is and they'll know how to get around it, and they'll have alternate routes. If you're commuting to work or taking your family out to dinner through one of these cities where something like this is going on, you should know that too, and it's not that hard to find out. So let's talk about how. The first step is to know if these riots or looting or protests at all are happening in your city. That's fairly easy to do. All you need to do is stay on top of local news to figure out if it's happening in an area that's nearby you or anywhere that you need to be. Second, having some intel on what type of activity is going on in your area is crucial. Are they truly peaceful protests? Have they turned into violent riots? Are things being lit on fire? Are cars being stopped? All those sorts of things. One of the best ways to gather intelligence on this type of thing is getting online. Twitter is a great source. Even if you don't have a Twitter account, you can go on and you can do a search for riots or protests in your city, and you can generally find some video or some footage, some still photographs of what's going on. You can get a good idea of what's happening in your area. Staying on top of that and having that intel is going to be crucial. Third, and this is huge, is situational awareness. You should always be paying attention to your surroundings. You should always know what's going on. You should always be keeping your head on a swivel. It's just good practice to do that anyway while you're driving, but especially if you're driving through a hotspot like this. Pay attention to what's around your vehicle as you're driving. Pay attention to what's up at the next stoplight and the stoplight after that. Look far ahead to see what's going on. If you see any kind of activity that looks out of the ordinary, cars stopped, people in the road, large gatherings, flip a U-turn. turn left, turn right, get off that path and go somewhere else. The last place you want to be is in a vehicle surrounded by violent looters and rioters. There was a case up in Utah not too long ago of a car that was trying to drive through some protesters, and one of the protesters pulled out a handgun and fired some shots into the car, striking one of the passengers. Don't let that be you. Lastly, while you're trying to gather intel on some of these events and what's going on in your area, if you're not able to find specific information, there's one more trick you can do. Okay, so one thing that you can do is you can go to maps.snapchat.com or just Google Maps and Snapchat, and it'll take you to the Snapchat website where you can see a map of really anywhere you want. So we'll zoom in on the United States here. And you see those red spots, that is where there are a large number of uploaded snaps. So if you're not familiar with Snapchat, it's just a social media site where people can share videos, pictures, that sort of thing. And it's very popular among young people. So where you have areas where a lot of this stuff is going on, some security experts have noticed that wherever there is a protest or something like that going on, it correlates very, very closely with a high number of Snapchat uploads. So if we look at these, like down here, we can see all these various hotspots. You can zoom in on whichever one you want down there, and we can kind of look around. It'll show us, various things. But if you go, like, let's zoom in over here to, if we just click the plus button, it'll zoom in and take us here to the Chicago area, which is kind of close to Kenosha, Wisconsin. And we can zoom in there, and we can see that there's some activity there. The more we zoom in, it's not real big, but it's very concentrated, and there's a lot concentrated in one area. So the farther you zoom in, the more that you are able to pinpoint where the activity is and where it's going on. So I can zoom all the way in, and really, if you see here, I can drill down all the way to certain intersections. So I know exactly where it's going on and what's happening here, right there at that park, and here at this intersection at, what is that, 56th and 6th Ave or something like that. I know that those are the areas to steer clear of. So anyway, hopefully this tool is helpful. It can just be another tool in your toolbox for helping gather some information and keeping you safe. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. That's all I've got for today. Please stay safe out there. Until next time.